I think I would like to start by saying that I came to Dominica. I think the first time I came was December of 2016, and it was with a meeting with P.S. Burton, and it was to sort of court Dominica to becoming a member state of the International Organization for Migration. And I came a couple times, let's say, between that December 16 date and September 19th, 2017, which was a date which all of you remember very well, the date that the uninvited and the unwelcome guest of Maria passed over Dominica. I wasn't in Dominica at the time, obviously. I was in Guyana, and I came to Dominica shortly thereafter, and I had seen sort of the before and after, and it was shocking for me. So I really can only imagine, and I don't think I can imagine what it was like for you who lived through the ravages of Maria. And I have been coming to Dominica on a number of occasions since September 19th, 2017. And even coming here yesterday afternoon and driving across the island and coming into Roseau, I'm happy to see that the progress that's been made in trying to bounce back from such an event as Hurricane Maria. It's just really an almost unprecedented event. The driver who picked me up and we talked about the human spirit of the Dominicans and the resilience of the Dominicans, and I think the progress that I've seen, I think, has shown that the strength of the Dominican people, and I'm encouraged by what I've seen, and I commend all of your efforts and all of your hard work in trying to get the island back to its former self. You know, I see the forest trying to come back, I see the greenery coming back, and I also see the people and the human spirit trying to bring the country back to its former glory. And it's an amazing place, as Lee said. I fully agree with that. I'd like to mention very briefly that before the storm, IOM didn't have a physical presence on the island of Dominica. We came to Dominica just, I would say, about 48 hours after the storm hit. We had a team on the ground, along with other UN agencies and other international NGOs and national local NGOs, and we were working with the ministries and different agencies and trying to assess the damage and trying to determine you know, how we could provide support. We provided support with, you know, the provision of food and let's say, sorry, not food, non-food items, solar lamps, tarps, and we were working to try to provide sort of immediate support to the people on the ground who were suffering from the storm. Because we didn't have a physical presence in Dominica, there were some challenges in opening an office, getting a team on the ground. I think I have to recognize and thank the work of Jan Willem, who and his colleagues, my colleagues in the IOM office, who have started really from nothing, as I said, and have provided a lot of support, physical and material support in Dominica to those suffering from the storm. So we had a number of challenges in terms of, you know, opening a bank account and, you know, getting our sort of IT infrastructure together. All these challenges were not easy to face, but I think we're in a good place now, and we've been able to provide some assistance both to the government of Dominica and to the local people. I've met with some beneficiaries of our different programs, and you know, the sentiment expressed is always one of gratitude, And that's really what makes our work satisfying. That's why we do the work that we do. I mean, we try to help people on the ground, people who are suffering, and that's what makes it sort of all worthwhile. I think, you know, in my case, you know, I live far away from Dominica, and I work to provide sort of the administrative and financial backstopping that I can to the operation here. But I don't get to see every day what it's like, you know, and what the impact of our work has on people. So for me to be able to go around the island and meet some of our beneficiaries has meant a lot to me. And it does make it really all worthwhile. And so I appreciate the work that my colleagues have done here in Dominica. I think I'd like to close, I think, by thanking first the government of Dominica for becoming a member state of the IOM. It allowed us to operate, I think, more effectively here. It facilitated sort of our relationship. It allowed us to be able to work and to have sort of that impact on the local population that I mentioned earlier. So my thanks go out to the government of Dominica. My thanks go out to Prime Minister Skerritt, whom I met at the donor conference at the UN in November of last year. It was just about a year ago. Today, it's just a little bit under a year ago. It was this month. And my gratitude again to P.S. Burton, who has lobbied for us and lobbied for Dominica to become a member of the IOM. So thank you very much for that. I'd like to also thank, of course, the government of Australia, the people of Australia, for their generous donation, which has allowed us to be able to do our work. Without those funds, we really wouldn't have been able to complete the work that we were able to complete. So, High Commissioner Pilbeam, sincere thanks to you and to your government. And thanks to all of you for receiving me both here today and in my past visits. Thank you very much.
I arrived a year ago, and I can't believe how fast the time went. I remember it was the 15th of October. I arrived by ferry. The border checks were very light. And I went to Fort Young Hotel, and we had this working space with a leaking roof. We found an apartment quite quickly in the center, which was very fortunate because that was in short supply. What I remember that walking at night, I felt a bit scared because I was breaching the curfew. I didn't know at that time the difference between La Plaine or Portsmouth. All the cars were dented, and we had a lot of meetings. But we started, and initially IOM supported the government with the coordination and the distribution of non-food items. We also did an assessment of all the emergency shelters. At that time, initially there were 120, and in around January there were still 80 open, to know how the people were in those centers and how many people there were. Also, we knew that there were a lot of people displaced and staying with friends and family, but that is still, up till now, it's a bit of a secret how many those were. We just know that there were a lot. And soon we started planning and preparing together with the government the recovery programs, and housing repair was an obvious priority. Recovery is easily written, and it's more difficult to do it. Where to start? Everything is needed and everything is important. And everything we need to do it is in short supply. Think of the materials, labor, a bank account, trucks, storage. But we worked. We cursed. We begged. We negotiated. We hugged. We collaborated and we talked. And step by step, we moved ahead. And more than 1 year later, IOM and our partners repaired over 700 resilient roofs and provided 80 families with a resilient core house. most of them before the peak of the hurricane season 2018. Without our partners, we couldn't have done it. And I first and foremost want to mention the village councils. We worked in 14 villages, and the village councils were our essential partner in selecting the most vulnerable people. And how did that go? And we went through all the lists. We had the vulnerability needs assessment. We had the feedback mechanism, people calling in. We had a list of the village council themselves, and we all compiled them, and based on the vulnerability criteria as being determined by the Ministry of Social Services, we went one by one. Every beneficiary, the whole village we went through. Are these people vulnerable? Are they more vulnerable than the neighbors? Are they the most vulnerable? And then finally we came up with a list. We facilitated the process, but the actual selection has been done by the village councils, and also they communicated that. That is so important because it was this pleasant but also sometimes difficult collaboration. But we think that it was a crucial component of the success of our program. Then a special word of appreciation to our partner, from the volunteer friends from the Mennonites. They are already here since the start of our true construction, April last year. That's 8 months, doing volunteer construction work. They work from the heart and produce, I think, the best quality. Thank you so much, Lee, and your team for being here, and also the Mennonite community in the United States and Canada. I also like to mention our partner, Habitat for Humanity. Natasha is here, who provided invaluable technical support. For instance, they were the ones supporting us in recruiting 40 migrant laborers from Trinidad and Tobago and from Guyana. There were just not enough laborers to get the work done. And these guys and girls helped us out. They were leading the teams. They were taking Dominica less skilled workers on board and pulled it through. So there was teaching on the job. And it was also a nice flavor. It was the Caribbean helping the Caribbean. It was this group feeling of, hey, we're here together. So those guys and girls, but Habitat for Humanity, super thanks. The last part, what we did with Habitat for Humanity the last few months, is that we also trained Dominica workers. From unskilled, we made some unskilled workers semi-skilled. From semi-skilled, we made them almost skilled. We trained together about 100 people, which is invaluable because we are not here just to bring in the foreigners, but we are here to build the capacity of this country. Building capacity is part of resilience. Then we also worked together shortly with the teams from ADRA, the Adventist Church, and we had support from our friends from All Hands and Hearts, the volunteer organization from the United States. Those are still there. They're now working on a school. Then a big thanks to our donors: United Kingdom, European Union, China, via United Nations Development Program, and the reason why we're here today, Australia. Thank you for supporting us, understanding us, advising us. And Australia has been tremendously generous, and one of the few donors that funded the construction of poorhouses in an early recovery phase, reaching out, allowing us to build complete homes for people that lost their complete homes or had a home that was beyond repair. And these are, we target the most vulnerable, but these people that we've been able to support with the contribution of Australia often have a truly unique story. And our staff coming from the field to the office come back and like, whoa, can we help them? And I remember the stories of the two blind twin sisters, senior sisters in Marigot, that didn't have a home, and we were able to build a home for them. And we made it slightly bigger so they had a bit more privacy. And we were able to tailor them to make it more beautiful. We have a single elderly man in the west part, and this is becoming almost like the grandfather of the team. I have one of my team members going there every week now to clean up and to see if he's okay. There was a bit of a donation of money and giving food. This guy also got a radio so he can be in touch. So those people are so vulnerable but also so grateful that the team really went in there with a full heart. We worked hard on this program, but it's never enough. We see that many people are still living with friends and family, in compromised structures or in emergency shelters. We know that people have difficulties in finding a job, cannot sleep well because of the things that happened, or are just tired of fighting the battle. The IOM team is committed to stay. We want to stay here forever, and are motivated to continue to support the people and the government of Dominica. And we welcome everyone to work with us. In 2019, we have the following concrete things planned. We're still repairing roofs and building core houses. Recently, we received some funding from Habitat for Humanity, and we have received an in-kind donation from the Caritas network. I'm also pleased to tell that we're talking to the government of Dominica to see if we can support more vulnerable families with housing, for instance, wash facilities. We're supporting the Office of Disaster Management with the communication about possible disasters, preparedness activities, and the repair of 12 emergency shelters across the country, and that's supported by the United States. Later today, and you'll get a sneak peek now, we will announce our official collaboration with the DYBT, the Dominica Youth Business Trust, where we will support their trainings for young entrepreneurs, provide more make sure that there will be more grants to the young entrepreneurs that are starting, and we will set up a business development center. That center will also host an employment agency where we will collaborate with the other initiatives and structures within the government to do that. We're also planning, or we're also planning to do a survey, also together with the government, about migration. How many people migrated out of Dominica after Maria, and also how many people returned. We will especially focus on children, and the scope is that we learn more about movements after disasters, so that we can also prepare in case there's another disaster, what is likely to happen, so that we're prepared to support people moving or maybe receiving migrants from other islands in case it happens at the neighbors. And we have tons of ideas. Every day we pop up with new ideas. Yesterday I was at the Cricket Association and they say, hey, we want to promote women cricket. Can we collaborate with IOM? And we're becoming more present, and we get also a lot of ideas, which is just great, and we'll just see how we can find the funds and to see if we can combine projects and ideas together in proposals. IOM is now 1 year old in Dominica, and we feel truly at home and appreciated. We want to thank the government, we want to thank the people of Dominica for working with us from the bottom of our hearts. We're here because of Australia. I've been a few times there. My sister lives in Australia, and I'm very proud that you trusted us and support us in this program. And we're looking forward to continuous collaboration wherever in the world.
On behalf of the Ministry of Housing and Land, and by extension the Government of Dominica, to be associated today with the handing over of 80 resilient core homes, and the stress is on resilience. Today, really, to us, is a very tangible demonstration of the practical partnership between the Government of Dominica and the internationally recognized development agencies. You heard Jan a while ago saying, and even prior to Jan, Robert was saying, just days, 48 hours after that horrific event that we had on the 17th of September, the IOM was here And on that note, I wish to say that the IOM, as an international organization with the expertise in providing humanitarian assistance to improve the economic, social, and cultural development of displaced people, was indeed a very fitting welcome at the time. The IOM has been in very effective collaboration since during the relief stage with other United Nations agencies, and just to name just two, the World Food Program, as well as the United Nations Development Program, the UNDP, was really instrumental and very early on in helping government reorganize its functional systems and services to ensure that we could bring very effective and needed relief and comfort to a people who were very much traumatized at the time. And on this note, on behalf of the government of Dominica, I wish to publicly single out at this point the IOM and to extend profound appreciation and consideration to the IOM and the other UN agencies for really coming to our steadfast support and in our inspiration then and now. The handover of the 80 core houses today, funded by the Australian government, brings the government of Dominica, and by extension the country, to 80 steps closer to the country's target of seeking to repair or to rebuild, 4,800 completely destroyed homes. Your contribution today, Your Excellency, marks about 2% of the required new construction that the country needs to make in order to recover the damages that we sustained during Hurricane Maria. And for us today, we want to partake and celebrate with the soon-to-be 80 families that will be receiving those new homes. That will help satisfy the shelter needs for about 209 of those persons, and all of them for sure will gain improved sense of security, sense of safety, and indeed a sense of well-being. The 80 core houses that were built were done so in compliance with the declared and desired resilience declaration and standard as so vehemently articulated by His Honorable Prime Minister sometime just around 1 year last year while he was at the United Nations. And so we are elated to know that the Australian government, and by extension the IOM, have so positively embraced and responded to the appeal and vision of the government of Dominica in ensuring that Dominica becomes the first climate resilient country of the world. And as we said, and as has been declared by the Prime Minister, we want to do so by ensuring that the rebuilding that we are doing, our entire infrastructure, is built to resilience. And so you joining with us and really making such a tangible contribution today to us speak volume. And for that, I can say on behalf of the government that we will be eternally grateful to you for both coming to us support and showing solidarity to the rest of the world that we are indeed on the right track. In making that global declaration, and as Robert said, just around 1 year ago at the United Nations, the Honorable Roosevelt Sperrit, the Prime Minister of Dominica, reminded the world that our devastation is so complete that our recovery has to be total. And today, I can say with utter confidence that the contribution that we're getting from you today is a tangible and substantial response to the set of contribution we want to make to the total recovery that the country aspires to. I really need to recap, because sometimes I think we lose sight as a local people of the magnitude of the devastation that we sustained on September 17th, 2017. In financial terms, it was equivalent to 226% of GDP. And just to recap as well, the GDP of Dominica in 2017 was about 563 US dollars. I like to speak in practical terms. And you could think of a person who could comfortably raise 100 pounds. You instantaneously ask that person to lift 250 pounds or 225 pounds. Because we have so many international persons, I want to tell you what the typical Dominican response would be for that. To put it in another practical perspective, imagine having a baker, it could be Suki, it could be Ruben, any of the guys, who can comfortably supply about 8 or 10 outlets with 100 loaves weekly, no, daily, sorry. And you now ask that baker to supply 25 outlets with the same 100 loaves daily. You could well appreciate the burden that this person will have on hand. This is in practical terms what Dominica has sustained and the burden that we have to overcome in recovering this country. I'm saying this to say because sometimes we lost sight of the cognizance of the magnitude of the burden that we have in rebuilding this country. And on this note, I cannot stop less. It would be remiss of me not to again extend heartfelt appreciation and gratitude to the Australian government for seeing it fit to partner with us in helping us to overcome this burden and the challenge that we have. I wish to also recognize that the contribution you have made is again a very tangible demonstration of the kindness and the support of the Australian people, and I hope that it will really resonate within the international community to continue to gather and muster further international support for our cause in Dominica. It is also our sincerest hope and interest that the accord and solidarity manifested by the international agencies as the IOM, the UNDP, the World Food Programme, and all the other international agencies will really help to showcase the cause in Dominica that we're on the right track, doing the right things, and we would do very well with continuing to get your support in the furtherance of our reconstruction of this country. On this note, I really want to extend on behalf of the Commonwealth of Dominica and the people of the country our steadfast appreciation to the government and people of the Australian government of Australia, and of course to the UNDP, the IOM, and the other international UN agencies in really coming to support and rescue in Dominica. And on this note, I must say it is a pleasure for us to have the 80 core houses that again will be testifying and showing the resilient method and standards that we want to adopt in Dominica. I thank you.
I'm very pleased that Australia's been able to partner with the International Organisation for Migration and the government and people of Dominica to build back some of the housing you all lost last year in Hurricane Maria, to leave a legacy of new construction skills in building for resilience, and to help lay the foundations of a Dominica better able to face the challenges of living with more frequent extreme weather events. In the last few months, IOM has used Australia's contribution of $900,000 US to build 80 resilient core houses to house 80 of the most vulnerable households in Dominica. These core houses provide the essential resilient shelter that some Dominicans still need, but we're pleased to at least have made through the IOM program, a small dent in Dominica's needs. Australia's also pleased to have helped the IOM contribute to Dominica's long-term development and security by spreading knowledge and experience of disaster-resilient construction techniques among Dominican construction workers, skilled tradespeople such as carpenters. I'd like to mention the EU, the UK, China, UNDP, all of the other agencies that have provided substantial support to the IOM's impressive work in Dominica. The Commonwealth of Australia is about as far away from the Commonwealth of Dominica as it's possible to go in the world. If you add Liat into the equation, you could probably reach Sydney from here in a shade under 40 hours. And we don't have any pressing diplomatic or strategic interests in Dominica, but our leaders and people saw the devastation left after Maria, and a few of them remembered Erica as well, and they wanted to help. Australia is a tropical country. 26% of Australia's land mass and 5% of its people live in the tropics. So Australia experiences many of the problems of life in the tropics, mosquito-borne diseases, coral bleaching and so on. But extreme weather events are the most obvious drawbacks of tropical life, and they've been much more to you than a drawback, of course. But this does help us feel your pain. In Australia, we call our hurricanes cyclones because we think that makes them sound less threatening. But in the last 18 years in the first 18 years of the 21st century, Australia's been affected by 16 Category 5 cyclones, 16 Category 5 hurricanes, most of them making landfall at this strength. In a way, we're quite a bit more fortunate than you. We have some empty spaces in our tropical coastline. So the effects are overall quite a bit less devastating than they are on you. But we nonetheless have experienced, just in the first 18 years of this century, 16 Category 5 cyclones, hurricanes. But this compares with only 5 Category 5 cyclones in the last 18 years of the last century. So there may be a worrying trend there. It's getting clearer and clearer. None of the storms have been as devastating for Australians as Maria and Erica have been for Dominicans, but the sympathy expressed on behalf of the Australian people by the then Australian Foreign Minister, Miss Julie Bishop, in September 2017 flowed not just from our hearts but from our experience. I flew over Dominica 3 weeks after Maria and I was deeply moved. I barely recognised an island which was once 100 shades of green and was now a kind of dusty brown stripped of all its plants and leaves. You could see the roofs, you could see the wrecks of the cars, the island was stripped bare. Never seen it that way. But I was encouraged to know that down there Dominicans had begun work on Dominica's recovery and that we were helping by providing useful supplies such as generators and tarpaulins and solar lanterns and hygiene kits and bottled water through Dalca to distribute. In an excellent example of Caribbean solidarity, all of the emergency relief materials Australia provided to help were transported free of charge to Roseau by the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard, which made special efforts, for instance, to get an Australian shipment which included 5 generators to Dominica just before Christmas last year to make the festive season just a little bit more festive for 5 small and isolated communities. Dalca and Vincien were, and of course still are, our stalwart partners in this. The IOM and Dalca are not alone in serving Dominicans under arduous conditions, and I'd like to take the opportunity to thank all of those dedicated Dominicans, and I see quite a few in this room, in government and outside, who've worked tirelessly to restore services and livelihoods since Maria struck. We and other donors have been inspired by the efforts of Dominicans to do all they can to look after the needs of their fellow citizens in what we know has been an extremely challenging environment. There's a short Australian poem which always moves me and which I think fits this occasion. 150 years ago, Adam Lindsay Gordon, a celebrated Australian horseman, wrote, "Life is mostly froth and bubble, two things stand like stone. Kindness in another's trouble, courage in your own." We're glad to have offered our small kindness, and we salute your great courage. As Dominica recovers from Maria, the global spotlight is moving away, but Australia won't forget Dominica. As the focus of work switches to investment in mitigating future disasters, we intend, for instance, to maintain a succession of small but helpful projects under our direct aid program. As a cricket-loving Commonwealth country, Australia has always had friendly relations with Dominica. A friendly rivalry, let's say. but we're on your side, and we'll help where we can. So thank you very much.
It gives me great pleasure this morning to address this end of project handover ceremony, which symbolizes a successful partnership between the government of Dominica and the International Organization for Migration, the IOM, in responding to the housing needs of Dominica following the devastation of Hurricane Maria. Mark Mitchell, in his writing on Politics of Ingratitude, said, and I quote, "If we see gratitude as a moral duty, then ingratitude is a failure to live as duty requires. If, however, we see gratitude as a moral virtue, ingratitude reveals a flawed character. In either instance, ingratitude is a moral failure that we easily recognize and condemn. But although ingratitude is universally condemned, it is not the kind of moral failure that we usually punish. In fact, to punish a person for ingratitude would seem, in most cases, to be an overextension of the law." Close quote. In this exercise of moral duty and moral virtue, the government of Dominica wishes to profusely thank the IOM and its principals and staff for their unwavering dedication and commitment expressed to the people of Dominica over the past 14 months. Without relenting one bit, through its team leader, Mr. Wagdam, IOM has navigated jointly with the government of Dominica the challenging path from emergency to recovery, and as stated in the words of our own Prime Minister, from survival to success. I think it would be fitting at this point to ask us to put our hands together for the efforts of the IOM in Dominica. And let us not forget or believe that this small room represents the contribution that the IOM have made to the housing development in this country. Through its partnership, the IOM has accounted for construction of over 80 resilient homes, which will benefit some 209 families in 12 communities. Ladies and gentlemen, very early in the process of housing repair and recovery following Maria, the government mandated a review of the building codes and the housing standards to ensure that every roof repaired and every house or building reconstructed was built to a climate resilient standard embedded in the Dominica Building Code. It is my understanding that the IOM worked with the Ministry of Housing, the Ministry of Planning, and the Physical Planning Division to observe these regulations. It is my hope that the Planning Division and the Ministry of Housing would have given the approval and or certification that the core houses which are being symbolically handed over today have met these standards. Anyone who experienced firsthand the turmoil and trauma we went through would endorse outrightly the need to enforce strict compliance to the building codes. The pain and loss suffered by Dominicans has warranted all this. I've been informed that the IOM undertook to repair 600 roofs and achieved that target by June 2018. By all means, this is a great feat, and the government's own roof and repair program, and that the number of humanitarian organizations like Caritas, the UNDP China, the Red Cross, Digicel, and all other institutions who supported us in this venture, we would like to say a big thank you. While the numbers may seem great, I must say to you that we still have a very long way to go. The building damage assessment conducted in November to December 2017 revealed that of the 29,431 buildings surveyed, 86.5% or 25,477 were private residences, while 2.9% or 840 were public buildings. The damage impact and consequential needs to dwell in homes are as follows. 4,815 houses were destroyed and needed rebuilding. That represented 19%. 6,573 homes needed roof replacement and strengthening, 26%. 7,220 houses needed moderate roof repairs, 28%. And 6,782 homes needed minor repairs. That's somewhere in the region of 27%. Additionally, the post-disaster needs assessment conducted by the World Bank following the passage of Hurricane Maria reported that damage to the housing sector was extensive and affecting approximately 90% of the housing stock. Of these 31,348 homes comprising of the Dominican housing stock, a total of 4,700 houses, which is 15%, were identified as destroyed. Approximately 23,500 homes were estimated to have been damaged at different levels, and some 3,135 were considered as not affected by the event. 3,000 out of 31,000. That's the magnitude of the damage that was suffered by the housing stock. Yet some people pretend that Hurricane Maria never happened. Total damage to the housing roof sector was estimated at 956 million EC dollars, or 354 million US. This includes the replacement cost of destroyed homes, repair cost of partially damaged houses, and replacement cost of household goods destroyed. Losses are estimated in the region of 77 million EC dollars. And that includes expected loss of rental income and the cost of demolition, rubble removal, and shelter expenses. My friends, irrespective of the formula, the analysis, or the calculator used, we must all admit that this was extraordinary destruction. However, coming from where we were on September 19th last year to where we are now, I was going to say, unless you are blind, but blind people do hear. So even they don't see, they can hear. The only word I can use to describe it is insanity. We must confess that we have come a very long way. This achievement is testament to every individual contribution made, large or small. Every roof repaired is one roof less to be repaired, and every house built is one house less that has to be built. You can be rest assured that this government, led by Honorable Roosevelt Skerry, under the Dominica Labour Party administration, will not relent, will not rest, will not leave one stone unturned until every single Dominican on this nature island has not only a roof over his or her head, but is afforded the dignity he or she rightly deserves. As part of this housing recovery program, the government is adamant in its thrust to ensure that the sanitation program continues and will be implemented in every house constructed as is required. In keeping with this Sustainable Development Goal 3 and 6, We believe that access to clean potable water, sanitation and hygiene is a fundamental right of every Dominican citizen. And it is for this reason that we continue to appeal to the IOM and every other organization assisting us in this recovery to ensure that their program makes provision for indoor toilets, bathroom facilities, septic tanks, soakaways for proper waste disposal management. The government has given its commitment to partner with organizations which are unable to mobilize the necessary resources to ensure that our households are adequately served. Ladies and gentlemen, the Roosevelt-Skerrit government has always been transparent with all its interventions as it continues to develop the economy and to improve the social and otherwise well-being of its people. Permit me to detail very briefly the significant investment currently being made in just housing post-Maria. For homes under construction, the government has invested some $486.2 million. A total of 57 contractors have been engaged. And if we think of the multiplier effect on the economy for employment creation and trade in goods and services, the numbers are even more significant. In terms of housing assistance for home repairs, a total of $112.4 million, EC dollars that is, have been spent, spanning every community, every constituency, and benefiting somewhere in the region of 4,000 households. The number speaks for themselves. Ladies and gentlemen, by any stretch of the imagination, for a small island developing state, which just 1 year ago was ravaged by the worst hurricane ever to hit the Caribbean region, this action by the government can only be described as phenomenal. I wish to let the IOM know that the offer still stands to collaborate and to cooperate. Your Excellency, the High Commissioner, I wish on behalf of the government of Dominica to thank you and your government for your continued assistance to the government and people of Dominica. This assistance has been manifested not only through housing recovery program, but the development of emergency shelters and training of officers, the support to the Office of Disaster Management, support to local farming groups with organic farming initiatives, assistance with the early recovery coordination in collaboration with the Ministry of Housing and Planning, and your overall support with your social protection programs. Your Excellency, please convey our deepest appreciation and gratitude to your people and your government. In closing, I wish on behalf of the government and the many beneficiaries of this program to commend and congratulate the IOM on its achievements. We welcome you to come and to continue to discuss other initiatives with us, which I am sure you are considering, and as you've mentioned this morning, that there's a lot under consideration. But we are prepared as a government to sit with you, to discuss some of those initiatives, and to see how we can collaborate. And to ask all other interested parties, other interested institutions and groups who are prepared to make a contribution in real terms, that they can come and sit with us as we continue to trod this very long and hard journey together. I want to pray God's blessings upon the organization and to pray God's blessings on the people of Dominica and the people of Australia. And may we find mercy and pity in His sight, that He'll continue to grant us the resources that are required to make this journey, this long journey to recovery, a major success, not only for Dominica, but for the world. Because we have a story to tell, and we believe that there are certain countries in the world under similar circumstances or who are prone to similar disasters to learn from the Dominican experience. This road has not been charted before, and we are beginning the process. But as discussing with His High Commissioner, he was impressed with the progress that we have made, and we expect that with God on our side, we'll continue to struggle until we reach that land. I don't want to say the promised land, because that's another story by itself. But the land where Dominicans will feel satisfied and will feel proud that this government has done extraordinary things, have traveled an extraordinary journey to ensure that we make life more meaningful and more comfortable. Thank you very much, and may God bless us all. Thank you. Thank you very much.
You get all.